Tonight, we'd like to celebrate a milestone. Today, this program, The Day, turns 10. For the past decade, The Day has covered a world that has been changing in real time with elections, wars, crises, breakthroughs, and moments that quietly rewrote the rules. What you're about to see is a small sample of the thousands of stories that we have brought to you since February of 2016. The people, the events, and the forces that shaped a decade and this show. Here we go. Police raids across Germany. A viral threat in your bedroom. Tonight, he's not going anywhere. Damascus rising.
There's a lot of skepticism.
Aleppo falling. I'm Brent Goff. I'm Brent Goff. I'm Brent Goff. And this is The Day. Police say he was trained by Islamic State just in time to foil a major terror attack.
What about human rights?
What can he hope to achieve? We will air a documentary, the first of its kind. You are also a refugee.
Yeah,
you
I'm
came
a refugee.
From
yeah, I
Syria.
came from.
Is Assange a second Snowden in Sweden right now? Let's take a look at the second one. All right. Oh my God, it almost makes you want to cry, doesn't it? The first time on The Day, the cowboy who's pulling for the Panthers. Wrong. Police are saying an apparent terror attack on a Christmas market. You're looking at live pictures of the scene right now. There is one confirmed fatality. Police saying maybe up to 50 injured.
Now we see how quickly things can change, and it's a very tense moment right now here as we speak, and police is still coming in, and the situation is still not clear here.
There's an image that we'd like for you to take a look at. It's so disturbing, however, we don't plan to show it again. A father and his baby girl, migrants from El Salvador. Now, it's believed that they were trying to swim across the Rio Grande River to reach the U.S. when they drowned. But we've seen this before. Almost 4 years ago, it was this little boy, a Syrian refugee. His body washed ashore in Turkey after the boat carrying him and his family to Greece sank.
Really concerned about the conditions at these border facilities where there are some reports.
Very concerned. And they're much better than they were under President Obama, by far.
We begin the day with the dead in Italy.
3,405 people that have died with COVID-19 infection in them.
Are working round the clock, countless hours to fight this incredible situation.
Today, Germany closed its borders with 5 of its neighbors.
A temporary restriction on non-essential travel to the European Union.
If the public refuses to heed the warnings now, it will only be a matter of time until hospitals and clinics are overwhelmed.
To get this message out to other countries that they have to be prepared.
At midnight tonight, a ban on flights from Europe to the U.S.
Will restrict entry, essentially a ban on entry.
This pandemic could easily morph into a global recession that could be worse than the Great Depression. Terry, this new NATO mission, it is on patrol now in the Baltic. I still have some questions about enforcement. I mean, imagine they catch a Russian shadow fleet boat in the act of sabotage. I mean, do we know what the rules of engagement are in that situation?
Everybody has questions about this, Brent, because it is an evolving situation. But I would say that we don't really know what would happen if the ship, made a break for it. I don't think anybody wants to find out right now. They're pretty happy they've got them in their control right now and can gather all this information. This is very much an evolving situation with the law of the sea.
Look closely. The body language reveals more than just well-behaved elder statesmen showing respect for a fellow leader. Let's see what we can find. Here is President-elect Donald Trump arriving with his wife, Melania. And you see Al Gore stands to shake hands with Trump. And amazingly so, too, does former Vice President Mike Pence. Remember, Trump supporters, they called for Pence to be hanged after he refused to overturn the 2020 election results. Now, you also notice Pence's wife, Karen, she remained seated. She did not acknowledge Donald Trump. And then there was George W. Bush's belly tap of Barack Obama. That's been making the rounds on social media. These are clearly two men who feel comfortable in each other's company. Tap that belly. There comes Laura. And look at these unlikely neighbors. Barack Obama seated next to Donald Trump. In the past, they have taken plenty of shots at each other, but here they appear to be locked in deep discussion. Now, this is one of the most talked about moments of the funeral. And finally, here is President Biden returning to his seat after delivering his eulogy for Jimmy Carter. Now, take a good look at Hillary Clinton's reaction when Biden sits down. Biden spoke about the importance of character, and Hillary nodding there, she appears to agree. I imagine that she is wondering if the soon-to-be president, if he got the message too. If we could read minds. If we could read minds, I know one man who can read minds, and he's right here at the big table with me right now, Julius van der Laar. Julius was the very first guest on that very first episode of The Day. We connected in 2016 because, Julius, you had been a member of the Obama campaigns, 2008, 2012, and now you are a political campaign consultant right here in Germany.
And always happy to join you here at the big table.
Well, there's always a
Congratulations, 10 years in the making.
That's right, that's right. Well, there's always a seat here for you.
Thank you.
They say that hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
We talked about U.S. politics a lot. We talked about President Trump, President Biden. Looking back, what was the most significant thing about Trump winning the White House in 2016?
The speed of change. Trump winning, almost nobody predicting it. And then, of course, how things started to shape out and the speed in which politics has changed, of course, infused by social media, by AI, and now, of course, everything just coming at you from a constant stream of information, never knowing what's going to happen the next day. So I feel like politics has sped up. And at least in recent months, it has become sort of this form of entertainment. I think, we're looking at The Day in DW News. You're trying to report the news every night, and that's what you and your team are doing. But out there's an information warfare and battle happening, and of course also sort of this notion of entertainment. And I think that's what's drawing people.
Yeah, there's a lot of style over substance. We've been hearing that for a long time. What about the notion of guardrails in American democracy? Back in 2016, there were a lot of people who thought the system would correct itself.
Right. Well, and some people will argue the system has been corrected by Donald Trump. And, a majority of Americans had voted for Donald Trump. I will say that, of course, you see every administration, whether it's the Bush administration, the Obama administration, of course, trying to expand presidential power. And the same, of course, is true for Donald Trump, whether you like it or not. But I think the story of this term is that the Congress has sort of just given up on power. And
that's where the guardrails have fallen off, right?
Precisely. Of course, we have the courts, the Supreme Court, lower courts, but I think Congress has just sort of given up on the checks and balances.
When you look back at the Obama campaign and what worked then, there was a lot of positive energy in 2008. I remember it as well. What still works today? I mean, because politics feels like a completely different animal now.
I agree. But politics did feel horrible at points back then as well. So I think the sort of silver lining that's always gone through, whether it's the Trump campaign, the Obama campaign, I think it is hope. Whether a candidate is able to tell a story about a better future, and Obama certainly was able to do that. And I think Donald Trump, for half the country at least, was able to tell that same story. Make America Great Again is a positive, a forward-looking message, at least for half the country. And I think that is what every candidate has to be able to do, is to capture the imagination.
Do you think, really quickly, do you think that energy from the U.S., has it come over here, or the negative energy, has it come over to Germany in politics?
Yes, we've always looked at the U.S., and whatever is happening in the U.S., a couple of years later, that's what's happening in Europe as well.
Yeah, all right. Julie, stay right there. We're going to take a look at another part of this 10th anniversary, and that has to do with Brexit. You may remember the referendum when the UK decided to leave the European Union. Now, the date for that was October 31st, 2019, but former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he had a different timeline, and Europe was not amused.
Let's just take a look at this angry tweet from the EU Council President Donald Tusk. He tweeted Boris Johnson directly and said, "What's at stake is not winning some stupid blame game. At stake is the future of Europe and the UK as well as the security and interests of our people. You don't want a deal, you don't want an extension, you don't want to revoke. Quo vadis," which means, where are you going? But, you know, there are many, and particularly Brexiteers in the UK, who think this is another example of Europe doing everything to stop the UK from Brexiting. And we have to look at this now. This has come from the group Leave EU. We didn't win 2 world wars to be pushed around by a crowd. Well, we know that Boris Johnson has one person in particular who's behind him in Downing Street. That's his special advisor, Dominic Cummings. And he is somebody who was behind the very successful the official Leave campaign, which saw the Brexit referendum won by those who want to exit the EU. He is now in Downing Street, prepared to do pretty much anything to get the UK out of the EU. And that is why, over and over again, we are hearing Boris Johnson saying, we will leave the EU on October the 31st, even though I now think, and many people now think, it is looking increasingly unlikely.
And the woman you heard there is right here beside me right now, our correspondent Alex Forrest Whiting. She was really our Brexit goddess.
I was.
During that time.
Brexit analyst, and I feel like I lived in this studio with you
for
a couple of years.
You did. You left some clothes, by the way. You know, you predicted it right. We knew that it was October 31st, 2019, and they asked for a delay eventually, and you called it. Where does that intuition, that ability to predict, where did that come from?
Well, it was just such a crazy time, if you remember. I mean, I've just been rethinking about everything that was happening at the time. And if you remember, people, and particularly Parliament, were trying to make sure that there wasn't going to be a hard Brexit, and even talking about the possibility of a second referendum. So things were going beyond the deadlines that had been set. Even, do you remember, in September of that year, we learnt a new word, proroguing. Do you remember when Boris Johnson prorogued Parliament? Or he didn't, the Queen did, but he asked the Queen to do it, which meant that they shut down Parliament for 5 weeks because they were trying to get this deal through.
I forgot about that. You're exactly right.
It was just such a crazy time.
And has Brexit brought what the Leavers wanted, the Brexiteers? Has it delivered?
Ooh, that's a question. I think even most Brexiteers would say no, it has not. I think there was a problem at the heart of Brexit. Some people wanted the UK to become a Singapore on Thames, which meant no more regulations. They wanted it just to be about free trade and getting rid of all the EU baggage that came with it. Others wanted more protection, were hoping that they got the EU out the way, they would be guaranteed jobs, etc. And neither side has got what they want. Look at the economy. The economy is already, by Conservative measures, 4% smaller than it was. Others are saying up to 8% smaller. And that whole issue of immigration, nobody is happy about what happened. In fact, after Brexit, immigration and migration into the UK ballooned because so many more people came in from outside the EU, even though they got rid of freedom of movement.
I remember the night of the referendum and just how shocked everyone was. And even the UK ambassador to Germany sitting here at the table with tears in his eyes. Brexit has not been worth it, has it?
I would say that many people would struggle to honestly say, hand on heart, that it has been worth it. I think that there have been so many issues, even with the Brexiteers saying we will get these trade deals. Nothing has been smooth for them. And look who now is doing so well back in the polls. It is Nigel Farage, the man who pushed Brexit into the mainstream, and he now is the one who is garnering so many votes. OK, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, which is so clear. Is he going to be the Prime Minister of the UK eventually?
Save the tape.
Oh, yes, save the tape. At the moment, there are only 8 members of his party in Parliament, but Certainly the polls are looking very favourable to him, but a lot would have to come together for him to become Prime Minister. However, at the moment, with the way things are going for the current government, the Labour government, they are hemorrhaging votes and support, and so many people are going towards the Brexit party.
Someone said the same thing about a Brexit referendum 10 years ago, so we will see.
But I think this is how you build trust.
That's right.
By not making the hot take.
That's right.
Exactly explaining what the situation is.
We're almost out of time, but before we go, we want proof that to err is human. And it's funny, that time 10 years ago when I mistakenly thought Julius was Lars, and it was the birth of a blooper. Take a look.
Who should be their party's candidate to stand in that election come November the 8th?
And, you know, we hear Richard talking about what's going on there, Lars, but tell me, does the Iowa caucus, does it really matter? Lars, Lars, can you hear me? Lars? Can you hear? Julius, I'm sorry. Julius, no, I had the name in my ear. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. No wonder you weren't looking at me. Yeah, do these caucuses matter?
Always blame the producer. It's that person in my ear.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought he'd had a stroke. I thought he'd had a stroke.
Man, that moment, just looking at it, feels like almost 10 years. You're sitting there struggling.
It almost took 10 years off of my life, I tell you. Okay, so my producer is saying now we need to wrap up. So listen, thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you, Brian.
Let's see what we're doing in 10 years. And a special thanks to all of you for welcoming us into your homes and lives these past 10 years. We're hoping for another 10. And we still don't qualify for retirement, so we have to work. And remember, no matter what happens between now and then, tomorrow is another day. We'll see you then, everybody.